Yeah, there was obviously some comments by a well-known radio station back in Sydney, which, sporting teams were used to criticism, but sometimes the comments crossed the line, and that one certainly did cross the line. It was firstly completely unnecessary and generally outrageous, and it's something that just from a behavioural perspective is really very, very disappointing. That's kind of all we want to say. No matter, we're here to play football. We've put that behind us. Our federation will deal with it moving forward from here, and from now on we'd just like to talk about football.
Lucas.
Tom, you spoke in the post-game about the line-up for tomorrow's game, saying that maybe the girls that have got Champions League commitments and stuff like that might play a little bit less. Is that something that will be factored in tonight?
Certainly, I mean, and it's been factored in, I think, since the start of this tournament. We've been very, very careful to make sure that all of our players get back to clubland as fit and healthy as we can get them back there. But the second thing which is important about this tournament is an opportunity to give other players some reasonable game time and to have a good look at those players. So we will be making, a bit like the last game, we'll be making some considerable changes tomorrow.
Is that sort of going to be more in line? I know last time you spoke about balance and sort of still trying to make 4 or 5 changes. Is that something you expect to see again, or is it going to be even more?
No, probably about the same. It's hard to make too many changes because, again, players that will start tomorrow won't play 90 minutes as well. So it's balancing out the complete squad, the starting 11 players that come on as a sub, and making sure we try to give some game time to players that need it, but also make sure we give rest to players that need that as well.
Colombia obviously also winless. How much is this an opportunity not only to get off the mark, but also will it change, if we are to win this game, the way that this tournament is sort of defined? Because after the performance in the USA, it's a vastly different perception, I guess.
Yeah, there's no doubt it will certainly help. We're in the business of trying to win games, and any time you win a game, there's a much more positive feel about the squad and about the programme. So, tomorrow's game is a very important one, both from a performance perspective, and it would be great to get a result in that game as well, because again, that gives the players a bit more confidence as we move forward. So it's always important to win.
In terms of the girls that have made their debuts, obviously they're still sort of making their way in terms of the formation of the group. But for girls like, say, like a Caitlin Torpy, or girls that have been, weeding their way into more and more camps, is there anyone that stood out in terms of growing in terms of leadership?
I don't necessarily think so much in leadership. It's hard to, it's really a really cramped schedule. So your leadership tends to come out when you have a bit more time to spend together. So at the moment, our training sessions are limited, then we're straight into game time. So I don't think it's in a practical sense that I come here and say, well, there's somebody that's really stepped up in a leadership role. In a sense, and we talked about this before, or just when we come into the camp, is that I'm looking for the same kind of attitude, performance from a player that walks into from camp 1, whether it's camp 1 or camp 151. So really what we want to do is we want our players to come in here and to step up and be international players as quickly as they can.
Final one from you, Lucas, before we head online.
Sure. Just one on Steph Catley, obviously played centre-back the other day. Is that a role that you want to see utilised more in if you are to continue?
Not necessarily. There's a couple of reasons for Steph playing at centre-back. One is that, again, she's one of those players who have got a heavy club schedule, and if she plays at centre-back, she covers a lot less ground than she does playing as a full-back. The second thing is, she's come in with a kind of a slight cold, so she's not quite 100%. She's almost 100%. So that centre-back position just makes life a little bit easier for her.
We'll head online, as I said, use the raise your hand function, and I'll come to you with a question and then a follow-up. Erin Smith.
Thanks, Anne. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Erin.
Just can you talk us through what you're expecting from Colombia? You've said the whole time 3 very different teams in this tournament. What are you expecting from Colombia?
Probably more of a Brazil-style game that we had late last year. So that would be more. It'll be a very physical game. They've got a couple of outstanding players in the lineup, and we need to sort of look after them. And obviously, being South American, they've got a certain rhythm, a certain way of playing that's a little bit different to the Japanese and a little bit different to the Americans. So there's all those factors to take into account in this game tomorrow.
And I know we ask this all the time, Tom, but have you been given any steer on whether or not tomorrow's game is your last one as interim coach?
Nobody's tapped me in the shoulder yet, Aaron, but I keep looking over it just to see if there's somebody behind me. No, at the moment the answer's still the same as it was. Sorry for being repetitive, but you know, I'm here in the position at the moment. Nobody's told me any different at this stage, and I will just continue to do the job that I'm doing until such times as the Federation find a replacement.
Joey Lynch, followed by George Clark.
Well, Tom, I might just follow up on that question immediately from Aaron, because you've said repeatedly throughout your interim stint that you're preparing this squad for the Asian Cup as if you'll be there just because you're uncertain of the timelines. I guess with that hat on, how do you feel as though this squad is on their trajectory for the Asian Cup? Where are they on that process of preparing?
Well, a year away, to be honest, Joey, at this stage, and a lot more work to be done. I think there's, you know, what would be important for me in the sense of at this particular moment in the cycle, it's looking and assessing players and trying to make judgments on players that you think are going to be around in a year's time. And that's in essence, you have your staple standard players that you think, well, they're definitely going to be there. You have a group of players that you think they're actually going to be under a little bit of a threat. And then you've got the up-and-coming players that you're looking at and to say, you know, are you going to be good enough to force your way into that squad? So that's kind of, you know, if I'm the person that's planning that, that's kind of where I'm at in the planning process.
And just realised I didn't thank you for your time this morning, mate, so I appreciate that. That was very
Always a pleasure.
Also...
Oh, we've cut you off.
Number 9 role, but obviously she's coming back from an ACL. Is she capable of backing up and starting again? And also, Daniela Galic, is she in line for more minutes?
Well, firstly, the straightforward answer to Holly is no. We've got to be really careful with her. You know, she's come back and she's done extraordinarily well to come in at this level and handle it the way that she's done. But again, it's someone that we need to be very careful with at this stage. And, you know, at this moment in time, my ideal would for her not to play tomorrow, because we need to make sure that she goes away from this tournament healthy.
George Clark.
Sorry, Danielle.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Joy. I've got to keep Anne in order here all the time. It's unbelievable. So many jobs I've got to do. Like with Danielle, the challenging thing for Danielle at the moment is she's not getting any game time. You know, there's even been a few times where she's not even in the squad in Holland, and she's, you know, she's a player that again we're some ways away, and she's still a very young player. But you know, the key thing for her is to get somewhere or stay at the club that she's at, but actually get on the playing field.
George Clark, followed by Marco.
Thanks, Anne. Hi, Tom.
Hi, George.
I missed the start, but could you just clarify, is there anyone who won't play tomorrow? Is there anyone who's going back to their clubs earlier, or have you got a full squad available?
Yeah, no, nobody's going back to the clubs early. That's a recipe for disaster when you start.
Okay.
When you start. Yeah, no, everybody will be here.
Everybody will be here. That's
Yep.
good to hear. Tom, we've talked a lot about if tomorrow will be your last. I know you've had this job a couple of times now, but how does Australia go about closing the gap and making sure that it's them lifting the trophy this time next year on that platform of the Asian Cup?
Okay, I think there's two things to that. There's two parts to that question, George. First part is that obviously.
Sorry.
Sorry. The first part to that question is obviously the preparation for the Asian Cup, and that's you know, the key thing is how well the team is going to be able to prepare for that between now and next March, and then hopefully in next March go into that tournament with a fully fit and healthy squad, and at the same time have the balance in that squad with some players that we hope are going to actually push through, who are on the fringes of the team at the moment, and then you hope that your senior key players are going to turn up and perform really well. So that's the first part and the fundamental part to that tournament. I think the second part is, at the same time, as a nation, we need to start to look and plan ahead to what we're actually going to do, not just next year, but 2, 3, 4, 5 years after that, and we need to start to look at how we resource and how we work through the system coming in behind the national team.
Marco.
G'day Tom, thanks for your time.
Hi, Marco.
Just on that, if this is your last game, and you know how you just said, you know, we need to plan forward, so when this core group of players, like, you know, do leave, there is the next bunch there, would you like to have some involvement in making sure that that sort of, you know, happens?
I'm trying to...
I don't know, some type of, like, you know, like, I guess, like overseeing role or something?
I've been trying to retire for 2 years, and you're trying to push me into a job. Look, if the Federation would like me to be involved in anything, like the job I'm doing now, I'll be delighted to be involved. If not, then if not. But as I say, if I can be of any assistance and any help and give any input into those sort of things, then yeah, obviously I would like to be part of that process.
And Tom, you said before that in terms of tomorrow's game, you're expecting it to be physical, how it was against Brazil. Does that mean that, I think you mentioned a couple of times in the past week that the Aussies need to be more, you know, physical, and the sort of old Aussie sort of, you know, DNA, I guess, has to come through? Absolutely,
100%. And I think if you know, the US game, I think that started. You know, we had a pretty serious chat after the first game, and I think the players responded magnificently in that second game. In fact, when we looked at the stats, not that I'm a great go through the stats, but we actually won more challenges in that game than we did since the beginning of 2023. So there was really good improvement, and I want to see that continue tomorrow.
Okay, we've got time for 3 more questions, so we'll go Duncan and then Luke.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Tom, for your time. The Matildas conceded in the first minute against Japan and the US. Is that something that you've been addressing with the players going into the game against Colombia?
No, I actually say to them, look, can you give a goal up early just to make my job a wee bit harder? Look, yeah, we did. We talked about it. We knew that America was going to come out fast. We know how they play, and we did actually go through that very thing, and just decided to do the opposite. Sport is a funny old game sometimes. So hopefully we won't do that. Hopefully we won't do that tomorrow.
Luke.
Hey Tom, thanks
Hi,
for your
Luke.
time, mate. You mentioned after the game just the areas you think the team needs to improve in terms of, you know, ball retention and playing through the lines, and it was a pretty comprehensive assessment of where you thought the team was at the moment. You've been around for a long time in the game. How long does it take, do you think, for someone to come in and start to fix those various aspects?
Well, it depends who comes in. You know, if someone comes in that's got some familiarity with the team, it doesn't actually take that long at all. But the key thing in all of that is the amount of time you get with the team. That's the most important thing, the actual time you get out on the field physically working with the team, because that's when you can work on those things, all your combinations, and players start to get used to playing with each other, etc. So it's more about firstly the familiarity of the person coming in, and secondly, as I say, having time on the training field to work on these things.
And final question to Ainsley.
Yeah, hi, I'm just from 7 News. Not entirely match related, more so on some comments made by a media commentator this week here in Melbourne, offensive comments towards the Matildas team. Not sure if you've had a chance to hear what those comments were made on Triple M by Marty Sheargold. I won't go into exactly what they were because they were labelled very offensive and sexist. But I suppose just in 2025, do you have any reaction to these comments that have been made? I mean, is there any place for sexism and misogyny in women's sport and media these days? What's your reaction?
Well, for me, it's not so much about sexism and misogyny in a sense, although that's unacceptable, let me make that clear. It's kind of what the comments were. I mean, the comments just crossed the line, generally. They were just, you know, basically out of order and very, very unnecessary. And you don't mind, you know, our team is obviously a very high profile team, and being a high profile team, you do take criticism, you do create criticism, sometimes very near the edge, but sometimes that just goes over the edge, and those comments did that. And as I say, we'll let the federation deal with that. The players have just completely focused on the game tomorrow night, and hopefully it's a situation we won't have to deal with again.